What do art and love have in common, other than my having a complicated relationship with both? Well, for the most part, their similarities lay in the subjective reactions they both produce. One man's trash is another man's treasure, and all that crazy noise. Now, we've been banging the drum for cars as art for some time, even if we don't view every model as a masterpiece of contemporary craftsmanship and design. Because sometimes we approach the car from the perspective of how well it performs its intended function, and other times we approach the car from the perspective of what it communicates to the world on a personal level. And yet, for lack of another way to put it, I'll take a crack at whipping up a turn of phrase. I like to see cars through the lens of automotive humanism. Sometimes a car is a reflection of what a person has accomplished, a trophy for exhibiting success, the result of countless months of hard work, or the accumulation of a life's dream. Other times, a car is little more than a dependable machine for marshalling a person through phases of development, so that the passage of time and actualization are marked by the car you drove and how it added or detracted from that period in your life. Regardless, a vehicle is a blank canvas awaiting the attachment of value. Because in much the same way humanism adopts the approach that all people are inherently good, so too must automotive humanism take the approach that all cars are inherently good, at their base level. This doesn't mean they're beyond reproach, but simply that every car deserves to be judged not against its contemporaries, but against its own potential. A car is greater than the sum of its parts, or, at the very least, it can be. Automotive humanism is the idea that a car may not be a lot, but any car can be so much more than whatever it starts out as. So with all that having been said, the 2004 Chevy Tracker is one of the most forgettable cars I've ever driven in my entire
Winter, summer, spring, and fall, we had the Tracker, that was all. A humanistic notion of what this car could be.
life. So once upon a time there was a brand synonymous with low-cost cars that offered decent reliability, good gas mileage, and not a whole lot else. Among average consumers, the brand has been buried, relegated to the list of forgotten curios of the Western world, like Supersizing, the KFC Double Down, and Fantastic Four on the PlayStation 1. Yes, I speak of the Geo. The brand that, by 1998, prompted General Motors to make like Christian and bail. Ugh, that was a groaner. Okay, maybe they didn't entirely bail. They just put Geo under the Chevy banner. So the Geo Tracker became the Chevy Tracker. Or, as Google will correct me to say, the Chevrolet Tracker. And I get it. I get it. It's fine. I get it. You see, the plan was to go after the Wrangler crowd, which is all well and good because it offered a lighter alternative that got better gas mileage for a smaller price tag in exchange for a respectable, if unchallenging, driving experience. But when Geo went under, we got the Chevy version, and it seemed like sound reasoning to keep this on the road at the time. After all, it was a bit of a hit on the used car market, and one would reason that it could inevitably find its mainstream market as a new car, provided the public was willing to give it a chance. Except, that didn't really happen at a widespread level. It was just a blank slate that didn't seem to have any value or identity attached to it. Sometimes it helps to be that empty canvas. Other times, people are looking for something very specific. Not just in terms of form, but also in terms of function. The Tracker was a compact SUV made in conjunction with Suzuki, with a convertible soft-top two-door version that calls to mind a picnic that starts on a flowery plain and ends in a Motel 6. It's a car for the open road, an easy, breezy cruiser with the flexibility to go off-road without much trouble, and I feel almost nothing when I drive it. It's like sitting in a hot tub for an hour. After a while, you don't feel the water anymore. And after 20 minutes driving a Tracker, it's easy to forget what it is you're even driving. It's not offensive by any means, it's just not exemplary. It's an entirely neutral, unremarkable experience. But even in its own time, this was competing with the Jeep Wrangler and the RAV4, two cars which were offering experiences that, to the larger public, seemed more immediately exciting, even if the cost was higher. Now, this is the ZR2, which is the off-roading package. increasing ground clearance to 8 inches, and adding skid plates for the tougher terrain. But I'm not sure it's enough to overcome the noisy engine, the relative lack of room, the cheap interior, and resale value on par with a DVD copy of The Longest Yard. Now this right here is my aunt's 2004 model, which was the final year of production for the Tracker, and it comes with that aforementioned Zr2 Off-Roading Package. It features the 2.5-liter V6 making 165 horsepower at 6,500 RPM and 162 foot-pounds of torque at 4,000 RPM. It's got dual overhead cam, 24 valves, it's 4-wheel drive, it's 4-speed automatic transmission, etc., and so on. I mean, you know what this is. This is every sort of accessible off-roader that could be had cheaply. Fuel is a combined 18 miles per gallon, 17 city and 20 highway, and the starting MSRP is about $20,965, which is at least $5,000 cheaper than the Wrangler of that same year. Now, the idea of this being a capable off-roader seems ridiculous on its face, but it takes dirt and gravel roads like a champ. Not that I had the option of more challenging terrain than that, at least in my area. I mean, for a 15-year-old car, it's surprisingly nimble, and for how light it is, there's refreshingly low body roll. But then, my aunt doesn't exactly load this thing up with cargo. To what extent the Tracker's performance will hold up when you're increasing the weight with, say, amplifiers, drum kits, and all the detritus of a band in search of a big break? It's hard to tell. Because the Chevy Tracker gives off that aura of a car you drive when you're trying to get your normcore fusion group off the ground. Your band's name is Raw Enforcement, and on the Matt Lauer scale of opulent pretentiousness, your sound is somewhere between Catcher in the Rye and Pitchfork's review of Kid A by Radiohead. This car is basically the year 1996 wearing early 2000s cosplay. And if I remember anything about the early 2000s, it's that no matter what I could criticize about it, I sure as hell don't have any room to talk. The Tracker will roll up on your girl looking like a malnourished Wrangler, blasting the MTV Unplugged album by Canadian-born international panty dropper Bryan Adams, because swagger is all about how you carry yourself, and less about what you're actually presenting. And the Chevy Tracker has a sort of narrow, cut-rate swagger. You won't exactly remember this car, but you'll remember the memories you made in it. Someone had the summer of their lives in this car. Now, it's okay in my semi-rural, mostly urban area, but the notion that this will somehow conquer bolder terrain than whatever stands between you and a picnic in the Poconos feels like a bit of a hard sell. It requires too much suspension of disbelief. Seriously, disbelief could be the name of your project car, and I can already tell it's never getting finished because you'll never find a suspension for it. Disbelief could be the name of a student in a school for troubled youth, and it still couldn't be suspended under these circumstances. Disbelief could be a Twitter account that violates the terms of service, and it still couldn't be suspended. Actually, you know what? No, sorry, those were bad jokes, guys. My bad, everybody. I'm going. Sorry, I'll just... No, it's alright, you don't have to get up. It's okay. I'll just sort things... It'll be okay. Here's the thing about a Tracker. If you think about it, it's perfect for mudding and camping and off-roading, not because of its performance, but because of its relatively low barrier of entry for people looking for something cheap that they can beat on. Because really, to what extent is anyone treating an off-roader lightly? And this is what brings me back to the automotive humanistic component. Since a car like this could be a daily cruiser or an off-road crawler, it has potential beyond what it started as, because you could mod these things, make them faster, make them more powerful. But are you really making them more reliable? Are you making them more exciting? Will it more adequately fulfill the function it needs to fulfill if you dump money into seeing that this car's fullest potential is realized? Or has its potential already been realized to the best of its ability? Well, it hasn't. But so what? Even the cheapest car, even the most uninspired, even the most quotidian piece of machinery will still have some level of artfulness to it, because cars are expressions of their era. And while a car like this doesn't exactly look out of place, it doesn't look like something that belongs either, even if it does match the curvier, sanded edge aesthetic of modern mainstream cars. From the perspective of automotive humanism, it comes across as a car of unrealized potential because I feel like this car is only half good. It's half fast. It's half sturdy. It's half fun. Like any of my high school report cards, there's room for improvement in virtually every area. But when I say it's a car of unrealized potential, I can't help second guessing myself because, well, was this ever intended to be more than what it was? Hell, the Tracker seems like something designed to be here for a good time, not for a long time. It looks like it's built with every intention that you're going to drive this thing into the ground, because it's not going to match any of the top-line competitors with its low-grade, cheap plastics, and a back seat with hardly enough room for dry humping to climax. But this car is a survivor, even if it's kind of corny too. Maybe that's why I identify with it in some respects. I don't know how many Trackers are left out there, but this is going to be on the road forever. Like the inexplicable endurance of the Cutlass Sierra. Just as surely as a friendship has never completely survived a game of diplomacy, or a Mario Kart spiny blue shell, otherwise known as the Sleepover Ruiner, we're going to see this car on the road beyond the time where still seeing these on the road is in any way reasonable. I mean, the actual experience, the actual bare bones experience of driving this car is pretty forgettable. It's not that it's bad, it's just that it's not an aspirational vehicle. People don't long for an experience like this, or mourn the loss of what a Tracker could offer beyond its low price point. And the aesthetic gets more and more dated with each passing day. It's not particularly exciting, even if it is proficient enough for what it sets out to do. I maintain that this might actually be one of the more forgettable cars I've driven, and yet it's very much a regular car. It's sort of beautiful in how normal it is. And I have a sort of respect for its durability at a time where there are still plenty of affordable options in this segment. Maybe not as many as there were. Thanks, Cash for Clunkers. But I mean, really, who cares what car you drive when ultimately the experiences you're looking to have in it don't have much to do with the car in question? I mean, my aunt has had this car forever, and it's still serving her well. And ultimately, if you don't really care about the driving experience, then why should it bother you that it isn't exciting? That it isn't this white-knuckle, edge-of-the-seat experience? This car is not for me, and I don't know that you could pay me to daily this thing. But that's just my opinion. And opinions are like booty calls at 1 a.m. Everybody has the option to ignore the ones they don't like.